Well, hello everybody. We're here talking about con law cases today, and so we're going to start right off. I'm going to put my email up in case you need to get a hold of me. And so the case we're talking about today is Baker v. Carr. And the important consideration in this case is a term you may never have heard of, you may have heard of it. It's called gerrymandering. Gerrymandering, okay? And you know, I'll have a little illustration up on here in a little bit, but what we mean by that. Well, Baker versus Carr, it was decided during the 1960s with the famous Earl Warren Court, which was one of the courts that gave us cases like Mapp versus Ohio, Terry versus Ohio, Miranda versus Arizona, quite a number of other cases. But this is a civil law case, and it concerned legislative, what we call apportionment. So what that means is, where do you vote and who do you vote for? And in federal and in both state and federal elections, the legislature has a duty to periodically what we call reapportion. So that means realign and put so many voters together. And the theory behind this is that if we're going to do reapportionment, it should be reasonable across the state so that all the different districts should be about the same size, number of people. Geographically is not as important as far as area of the different districts as far as land and so forth, because some properties can be more densely populated, others are less so. So it's really more about the population. You want to put about an equal number of people in every district. And you would think that the just way to do this would be to ignore all factors such as their political parties and so forth. But unfortunately, a lot of these politicians have at their fingertips statistics on which counties, townships, and so forth tend to be more Republican and which ones tend to be more Democrat. So what you get into is you get into kind of a pitched battle between the parties, and the party with the most representatives in the state legislature at the time gets to make most of the decisions. So in other words, they try to overwhelm the other party by having everybody in the districts where they can elect the most representatives, and then try to put the opposite party into a lesser number of districts so that they can elect less people. So that's the nature of this. This happened in Tennessee. It was actually something that was going on all over the country, but Tennessee, this Charles Baker had the more or less audacity to challenge the state and say, well, hey, this just isn't right. And so what he did is he sued a member of the government of Tennessee, Carr, and what he basically was saying is that a law was passed in 1901 that requires apportionment of the seats of the state's General Assembly periodically, like every 10 years, I think. Well, they hadn't done it since 1901, and this was the 1960s. And so this case was actually decided in 1962. It's 369 U.S. 186, 1962 case. So let me write that up here for you. I gotta get it again, make sure I got it. 369. Remember, that's the volume. U.S. is the reporter, and that's the federal reporter published by the federal government. 186 is the page. Okay, and then the year, like I said, 1962. So this is the way. Of course, you wouldn't have gerrymandering, but your heading again would be Baker versus Carr for your brief. Baker versus Carr, 369 U.S. 186, 1962. And if you want to shepherdize that, remember that the Shepard citation would be 369 US 186. So on a few of these, and some of you are running really far ahead on some of your assignments and stuff, and what we're going to probably require you to do is go back and do them over, because as we get more into this, I want to start having you actually Shepardize these cases, so you say, is this still a good case? Tell me about another case that followed this case, or that distinguished this case, or that said this case was no longer good law. So that's the kind of thing that we want to look at later. So don't forget, don't ignore your Shepards. And some of you will still say, well, I don't know, what is Shepards and so forth. Remember, this is just a service out there, and their job is to basically provide lawyers and other legal scholars with lists of cases, original case and other cases that talked about that case. So if they mention Baker versus Carr in a later case down the line, then that case should be reported in Shepards, and you could read it too. So what you're really trying to do is see, you know, how does the law progress over time? What's the history of this? How is it changing? So this issue of gerrymandering, has it gotten better? Has it gotten worse? You know, and so forth. So these are things that we want to consider as we get more into this in this class. So basically, then what I'm talking about again is trying to give you a better understanding of gerrymandering. I gave you kind of a written description of this, but I'm going to try to, you know, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, so that's why I'm giving you like 1,000 pictures here. And let's just assume that this is my sock, okay? So this is gerrymandering, okay? So that's a, you know, maybe a bad picture of a sock, but I'll put a label on it so you know that I'm talking about a sock, okay? So if you were thinking of a sock, see how you just like throw it down on the table and it just kind of flops out, kind of like that? And that's what they do with some of these, and I put up a website for you to look at Indiana, you know, and why do some of these districts in Indiana look like that? Because here again, they're doing the very thing that I'm saying. So it's a reverse sock, you know, in Indiana for legislative districts for congressmen and so forth. So that's the big problem. Well, what was the question here? Did the Supreme Court have jurisdictions over questions of legislative apportionment? So the question is, you know, should there be some degree of law in this area? And I would say yes, based upon the 14th Amendment, due process, equal protection clause. There would be a requirement that, you know, everybody be given equal protection in respect to the laws, so that, you know, when your vote, you know, if in one district your vote counts up against, let's say, 10,000 other votes for Congress, okay, so you're one of 10,000. Well, and there's another one where the district only has, that's supposed to be 2 dots, sorry. Let's say that this district has only 5,000 people in the whole district, and they're voting for a congressman or a state legislature. And this is another district, and it's got 10,000 people in it. Is that fair? Obviously not. Your vote is worth half of this one. Okay, say that vote counts as 1. Well, this vote only counts as 1/2. That's the bottom line of what's really wrong with gerrymandering. Okay, so that's why I'm doing this video, to let you understand it, why it's important. I'm sure you never heard of it, but legislative reapportionment, very important subject. And here again, it's showing that the Supreme Court has power using the Constitution over even state legislatures. So this happened to be in Tennessee. You could find many more cases on this, because this issue of gerrymandering is a constant problem. Matter of fact, it's going on today. Well, hey, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Tried to explain this a little bit. These short videos are, you know, sometimes they can be a little bit frustrating, but Basically what we're trying to do is kind of give you a basic understanding of the subject matter, and so hopefully this will help you understand why we even bother with this case. Thank you.